What up, Grinders, and welcome to the absolutely epic early week podcast. Not exactly as early as it normally is going to be. We have to change the name if you want to get all technical this week. It's definitely the early week podcast. I am your host, Dean 7904. If you want to get all technical on me, we have 2/3 of the OGs of the absolute epic original. Whoa! I've already butchered it. I am fired immediately. JM is no longer here. It's clearly a lateral move based upon my last 40 seconds or so. Grant, please save me. Welcome to foosball. We're talking NFL. I'm excited.
Yeah. No, it's week one. I've been waiting for this pretty much since the Super Bowl last year. We're getting started. Everything's great. Football's fun. I'm excited. This is a good podcast. End of sentence.
We're not submitting this to the academy the last minute or so. At least we're going to edit my portion out. Of course, that's Grant Neat for you guys know Grant. And Magellan himself, back from sailing around the world, at least parts of the world to some degree. It's fun. Bobby Five. Bobby, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, man. I'm happy to be back. This is actually the first time I've recorded anything in almost 2 months now. So I'm ready to get back into it. I'm excited for football and happy to be doing the show with you guys.
Yeah, I was going to make a shake the rust off joke, but clearly I need the rust shaken off as well too. This podcast, how long has this been going on for, Grant? A couple of years now, the absolutely epic early week podcast?
I think this was the first podcast me and Bobby did, so just over 2 years exactly. This is year number 3.
All right, so hopefully this isn't like when the bad TV series gets desperate and all of a sudden they run out of good ideas, but I will be doing my best to host and steer the ship for sure. Somebody did tweet us the other day, by the way. Somebody tweeted me specifically, Grant, and we had a conversation about this off air, and I want to clarify this because I think they were being a smartass and making a joke. Somebody says, congrats, Dean, on being the Kirstie Alley of this podcast. Now, it took me a second. I'm like, Kirstie Alley? First of all, how old is this person making a Kirstie Alley reference? The second part of it is, it didn't hit me. I'm like, wait a second. I'm replacing JM. Kirstie Alley famously replaced Shelley Long on Cheers. Now that's a TV show, kids. Look it up. It's on the Google machine. It's probably on YouTube or somewhere out there, maybe Hulu. That's what I thought it was. I thought he was making the reference that I'm replacing JM. JM is Shelley Long. I'm Kirstie Alley, but you had a different theory.
I think that he's referring to Kirstie Alley in The Parent Trap, the wonderful movie, the remake that was better. And me and Bobby are twin Lindsay Lohans, and Bobby is the Lindsay Lohan from Europe. I'm the one from America that grew up on a ranch.
Bobby, chime in. Which one sounds more plausible? Because that's ridiculous.
Grant's makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, but it's a funny idea. I think
it's funnier, sure.
I think you nailed it with the Cheers thing. I think that's exactly what they meant.
All right, so we're going to be talking football in a second, and this is the absolutely epic early week podcast. One of these days I'm going to be able to say that correctly. But, absolutely epic early week podcast, and it's going to be out. We're recording Monday nights. That is the plan going forward, and it is just what it is, guys. We're going to be recording, talking about the NFL. Basically, it's a first look. We're not going to be breaking, X's and O's down too much. But we're going to be having fun talking football, and it's one of the first listens you guys should have as the week progresses, and our minds may change. Grant and Bobby, I'm sure. Bobby, your mind, I imagine at some point, from Monday's recording to Sunday, it changes at some point. But, that's why we're going to try to be loose, try to talk some football. But, it is – am I allowed to change my mind is what I'm asking, Bobby. Is it okay Absolutely. If I say I like this guy? Yeah, is that the house rules here?
You have to, but I think it is nice, for the people who do listen, if hopefully they follow you on Twitter, to send out a tweet if you're going to do something completely different than what you planned or something. That's what I like to do anyway, or I try to do it. But yeah, it's hard to stick with what we're going to say early in the week. This week will be easier because it's the first week of the season, but it's still going to be kind of tricky. So yes, you definitely reserve the right to change. But I do think that a lot of the times though, when I've kept my lineups that I've built during these shows in the past, I've done really well with it. So sometimes the early first look can be the best.
Grant, speaking of Twitter, by the way, I took some tweets. I asked Twitter before we jumped on and recorded. I asked them, I said, hey, Twitter, give me your hottest takes for week one. So we're going to bring up some guys that fired us some tweets earlier. earlier in the week. Oh, Bobby, one more thing I wanted to ask. Grant's rant's going to come up for a second. I don't want to steal your deal, Grant, because I just have one. It's singular. I just have one rant. It's not if it's a rant. It's more of a question. Bobby, we were supposed to record on Monday. You went to a wedding on Monday. Who in the world? Like, this is the world's first wedding on a Monday. Is this I can't imagine. Who gets married on a Monday?
You are aware that it was Labor Day, right?
Yeah, it's still like being married on a Sunday during a normal weekend. No one does that.
I thought it was ludicrous. I thought it was completely ludicrous, if you ask me. It's really nuts. It's a good friend of mine. We had an amazing time, a very long, fun-filled weekend, but I honestly have no idea still to this moment why the wedding was yesterday.
It's not going to last. That's two people, maybe they just both agree that's a great idea, but
Dean coming out firing.
Look, unless they both mutually agree that Monday is a great idea, one of those two is probably like, yeah, it's pretty terrible, but that's what he or she wants, and I'm not going to pick your battles. But I'm going to take the under on 3.5 years, Grant. Feel free to chime in and give your thought on it. But your rants, you must have a stockpile of rants, but you have not had a chance to jump on this podcast. The floor is yours. What do you want to rant about?
I have a tendency to forget what has actually happened. So this is all the last week when I remember that Chick-fil-A is a bunch of fudging liars. Every time I go there, I have a serious addiction to sauce. So I asked for 13 Polynesian sauces, and then they say, oh, we can give you 10. And then I look at the receipt, and it says 7. And then when I get to the dang window, they give me 3. And so then I have to sit there like a giant a-hole and ask for sauce. Can I get some more Polynesian sauce? Oh, here's 3. No, can I get 6 like you promised me at the beginning? Give me 6 more. You're a bunch of liars. Just give it to me. And I feel like such a D-bag, but it's an absolute necessity in my life to have a stockpile of 3 to 4 pounds of Polynesian sauce in my house at all times. And so Chick-fil-A, you're a bunch of liars.
So wait, why is 13 the perfect? Why is 14 too many to ask for and 12 is not enough? Why is 13 the perfect number?
Well, I figured out if I say 14, then they're going to be like, oh, okay, this guy's just going crazy. We'll say, no, we can only give you 7. But 13, it's like, all right, we'll bargain you down to 10. It's a nice even number. And then, of course, they lie to me and put down 7, and then they only give me 3, and then I have to yell at them, and it's a terrible experience of my life. That's the end.
Yeah, but you're stockpiling. This isn't one for your one experience. You're like a hoarder, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but do you have any idea how much Polynesian sauce I go to? It's like 80% sugar.
Bobby, I've never had Polynesian sauce. Maybe I'm missing out. I suppose the way Grant is selling it, I suppose maybe I'm missing out in life, I guess. But I'm not aware of what he's talking about.
Grant is obsessed with this stuff. I know what he's talking about, but I never take it myself, so I never use it myself. So it's definitely a Grant thing.
Grant's just a doomsday prepper in training or something over there. It just reminds me of I've been to the Cheesecake Factory. I'm going to name drop you guys. You guys know Pepsi 7? We've been to the Cheesecake Factory. He lives in Canada. They just got a Cheesecake Factory, but he loves it when he comes to America. He eats like a child. He eats the child's macaroni, but not he specifies. He says he's like, Grant, not Polynesian sauce, but ketchup. He demands 4 shoots of ketchup, and he gets very angry if you only give him 1 or 2.
Yeah, Dane Cook has an entire skit about that, how people just flip their lid every single time they don't give you enough ketchup, as if they're just, for doomsday, they need ketchup, and that's going to be the only currency. Decent skit, although he went real downhill. Sorry, Dane Cook.
I just saw him at the Comedy Store the other, maybe a couple days before I left on my trip overseas, and he's a big dude. He gained probably 75 pounds or so. Not all fat. A lot of it looks like steroids and muscles, but it's pretty crazy to see him now.
Making accusations here.
Hey, you just told me my friend's wedding wasn't going to last.
So Dane Cook catches some shrapnel. He didn't say anything. I'm sure he wishes your friend the best.
Oh, I'm not trying to throw shade at him. It's just that's hard to get that big, that strong, and that have a totally different body shape as you get in your 40s. It just doesn't make sense unless you're doing.
I feel like it's easier once you're in your 40s. Just all right, gotta stop exercising and eat more, and boom, you're 60-pound favorite. I can
gain 40 pounds in a week. He's a monster. He's literally
you got to be in good shape for all those B&Es, I suppose he plans. So Dan, I'm just hearing Dan's voice in our head. It's like he basically said, you got to keep the show on the rails to some degree. I want to say we're about 11 minutes in or so, and I can just hear people in the audience saying, this is a football podcast. We're going to talk DFS week 1. I do want to say this. I just want to get this out there as a general thought as far as, approaching the slate. Week 1, this is like there's so much group thought out there, and everybody's been staring at the same slate for 4 weeks now, 5 weeks now, 6 weeks out, depending on. Of course, they put the slate out early, the salaries out early. It's a really, really good week, and it's good to talk to you guys about this because you guys are more contrarian than I am. And, of course, I'll have my chalky lineups. But, Bobby, this feels like a really, really good week to be a little bit different. And, because sometimes variance is a thing. And we think we know everything, but we're like Jon Snow. We know nothing, right? Well, within 4 weeks, they'll come back and we'll be like, well, wait a second. We thought this and we thought that. And everything's completely different. So maybe be a little different week 1.
Yeah, I think that being contrarian, and obviously I'm always trying to be contrarian anyway because it makes sense when you're trying to win tournaments with 500,000 people. But this is a great week for it. I think there's a lot of really good options. I do think there's a lot of groupthink out there that goes on, especially when you have this much time between, like you said, 4 or 5 weeks so far. We look at the same thing. And I don't know. I've sort of stayed away from it until like the last little bit because I like to be fresh and I don't want to get stuck in that way of thinking. So I actually think there's a lot of really good contrarian plays on the board that we'll get into, I guess, as we go.
Yeah, it's your job to come up with the contrarian plays yourself and Grant. And, of course, I'm the old chalk, the chalk donkey. So, for sure, I'm going to throw out my chalk plays. Grant, how about yourself? How do you approach week 1?
I just do weird things in the story.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, Grant.
That's like status quo, though, isn't it? Weirder things or just weird things?
I mean, both.
Is there a football team that like is the equivalent of your beloved Chicago White Sox?
Yeah, it's very clearly Cleveland.
It's Cleveland. It's always Cleveland for him. This guy, Cleveland was going to win their first game of the year every single week last year. But Cleveland, obviously is going to be a little bit better, but they're not going to be, I don't think, as good as Grant thinks they are.
Yeah.
How many wins for Cleveland this year, Grant?
8.
I think 5 or 6 is better, is more accurate. They're the worst coach team in football.
Yeah, but they have Josh Gordon, the greatest player of all time.
Do you guys watch Hard Knocks?
I haven't watched the first episode. I haven't caught up. Guys, are we going to talk about actual DFS stuff?
Wait, this is football.
Bobby, talking about Hugh Jackson and like his, I don't know. Hard Knocks I want to talk about too, but for sure. But like Grant, the professional he is, getting us back on the rails. And I'm sure you're going to talk about fading the chalk in a second, Grant. But, of course, there are some players out there that the prices just don't make a lot of sense. Wide receiver, Keelan Cole is 3.8K versus the Giants. That's going to be one of the chalkiest plays on the entire slate. Just a note out there. We're going to talk DK for the most part, and we talk about the main slate. That's just way too cheap. He seems like the best receiver there in Jacksonville, of course. Marquise Lee being out for the year. He was probably, it was kind of a whack-a-mole situation, Grant, there in Jacksonville as far as like who's the best receiver. But I think Cole is like the mole that's going to pop up the most. And 3.8K just seems way, way, way too cheap. It's early. We don't know just yet. We're recording this on a Tuesday night, but it's certainly possible that Le'Veon Bell doesn't play this week and James Conner is just the guy at 4.5K. I don't know how much you need him because there's a lot of cheap stuff out there we'll kind of delve into as well. But Grant, general approach. Well, you're going to tell us. It's just you're going to fade the chalk. That's it, right?
I mean, I'll have some of the chalk. Like it's week 1, so you have to eat some of it just because there's such drastic mispricing here. You pick and choose where you're going to fade chalk, and rarely ever on a week 1 slate like this is the winning lineup just completely devoid of it because of the mispricing. Because pricing comes out so much earlier and injuries happen and everything kind of changes. But there are enough other spots that you can pivot off. Like let's say you have 6 mega chalk guys. You can go with 3 of them and then 3 perfect pivots. Or close to perfect pivots, or you can just go very different and do a middling lineup is something I'll do a little bit. But I'll be using some of it, and I'll get some exposure with certain guys in cash and on the draft app, like just figuring out the way to limit volatility while maximizing ROI.
The Saints have a 29.5 team total this week against Tampa. Of course, we know Kamara is an absolute beast. We also know Ingram suspended for the first 4 games of the season. Grant, you mentioned to me before the show, you were talking about the prospect of fading Kamara, who feels like he's probably going to be one of the more popular elite options there at running back this week. Le'Veon Bell, we don't know if he's going to play or not. I think if he does play at 9.4K, significantly lower ownership, especially against Cleveland, who isn't terrible against the run. People think Cleveland's just an awful team and not necessarily the case. DJ David Johnson, of course, is back this year. Basically, he missed the entire season basically hurt in the first drive or so with a hand. Talk me through the strategy, Grant, as far as not playing Kamara in tournaments, and I assume you're going to pivot to either another beast or maybe two guys in the 6 or 7K range. What's your thought process?
I mean, you can fade top price running backs entirely if you really want to. Everyone's going to throw it in there. There's enough value all over the place where it's pretty much everyone's just going to do it. And Kamara's a guy that Ingram's not in the first 4 games because he got suspended because sometimes people do dumb things. I can't remember why.
He was hanging out with Dane Cook. Oh,
yeah. That's where Dane Cook got steroids, allegedly. But yeah, so Kamara, people are assuming that with Ingram out, his touches are going to go up drastically. So everyone's going to be on him, assuming that his just ridiculous level of productivity throughout the entire last season is going to continue, which there is some merit to because of the New Orleans Saints offense and how they do things and their offensive line. But fading is probably the right move if he's going to be as ridiculously owned as I think he is. They have one guy behind him. I can't remember his name. Why can't I remember his name? I'm trying to remember his name. I'm just ranting now. In any case, they have a guy behind him that they could end up getting.
Well, they have Gillislee now, right?
Gillisley's not the guy. Boston.
They had Williams, but they cut Williams.
Yeah, Boston Scott, I think, has looked decent in preseason, and that he could end up getting enough touches to take away Kamara's just ridiculously huge value that people think it's going to be because he's going to get 25, 26 touches. But I don't know if that's going to entirely be true. And, if they're ahead, which they probably will be against Tampa Bay, they'll throw in their backup running back, and Kamara won't be as involved. And plus, Breeze can go and pass a whole bunch of balls to Thomas. And a lot of Kamara's huge equity has to do with his touchdown equity, which could drastically be limited if they give it to Ginn or they give it to Thomas in the red zone. So pivoting off of Kamara, you generally want to have Thomas in your lineup or Boston Scott or some other different way of doing it so that if Kamara is not going to get all those points, someone else is going to, and you go with someone else instead of Kamara.
Yeah, so is it spend money on Thomas or spend money on a different running back and a guy like Todd Gurley or something like that?
I mean, you can go Todd Gurley, you can go David Johnson. Well, Gurley's not on the main slate, but you can go David Johnson, who the year before, I think David Johnson's going to be the number 1 running back this year. He was supposed to be last year. He got injured to his hand, which doesn't affect long-term productivity. So why are people thinking that he's going to be any worse? He was the consensus number 1 guy last year. And this year, he's probably not going to be good. And he basically has a cookie-cutter kind of quarterback from Palmer 2 years ago to Bradford. I mean, they're both Palmer wasn't that bad. Bradford's shown decency when he's actually been in the starting lineup. He showed good numbers. And so David Johnson could be just as productive. And they have less wide receiver weapons. So now they can rely on David Johnson even more. And they don't really have anything behind him. They have to compete the only way they can, which is with David Johnson.
Bobby, jump in here. What's your take as far as high-priced running backs this week?
Yeah, I think that the weird part is I sort of like all of them. But I think that the way that I'm probably going to build is I might even try and pay down and take shots on some guys and then pay up at wide receiver. I think that's going to be a little bit less. I like Michael Thomas a lot this week, so I don't mind the idea of fading Kamara. I'm not going to fade him entirely. It's too good of a spot. It's too good of a play. But I think there are a lot of options you could look at spending down at running back that I think might be a little bit more interesting. And a lot of these, somebody's going to be playing a lot of these guys. I agree with David Johnson too. I don't know. Grant, do we have any projected ownership out yet? I actually didn't even look at that before.
I didn't know. I'll look right now. Keep talking.
No,
I'm just
I don't believe it's still too early.
I would assume that people haven't forgotten that David Johnson is a top 2 running back in the NFL.
Top 1.
He's really good.
Yeah, he's the second best, and he'll have the second most fantasy points this year behind Le'Veon, depending on when Le'Veon plays. But anyway, I really like David Johnson as a pivot. I also think that there's some cheap guys that I'm looking at. I think a lot of people are going to play Burkhead, but I think that playing a guy like James, this could be an interesting James White spot, as a contrarian play. So I'm sort of trying to do something different, like we were talking about earlier, and paying up more at wide receiver and trying to pay down at running back is definitely something I'm considering this week.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned James White, right? So hey, I mentioned I was I was crowdsourcing. I was getting some tweets from I wanted some hot takes from the people out there. So the first one I'll fire up is, and I love this handle. It's one of the reasons why I took it. It's a hot dog fingers, and of course that's fingers with a PH, not an F. If you're scoring at home, James White outscores Rex Burkhead. Yep, Rex Burkhead is 4.2K. Everybody's talking up Rex Burkhead, and I don't think. I say all this. knowing that I'm going to probably play Rex Burkhead in cash. I'm not like a lock for sure, but 4.2K just seems too cheap for, the team that's kind of depleted. He's going to catch the ball in the backfield to some degree. He's going to grab, they get some handoff as well. New England projected to score a pile of points as they always do. But, Sonny Michel, first-round pick, he's healthy last I saw. And then there's James White, who's kind of the third down back there as well. But there's certainly a path for Rex Burkhead disappointing. Like, I don't know how many touches he's going to get. This is not a guy who's projected to get the ball 25 times. And Belichick is a smart dude, right, Grant? Belichick, one of the sharpest guys in the league. And I'm one of those guys that kind of say, like, running back's most replaceable stud position in all sports. He used a first-round pick on Sonny Michel. Like, I'm not sure if they're just going to insert him right away. Who knows what they're going to do? I have no idea, but I would not be surprised if he's somewhat or a decent amount involved enough to irk the owners of Burkhead. And then, James White absolutely can catch 2 touchdown passes from Brady. You talked about being different, doing weird things. Is it weird to play a James White?
No, it's not weird to play James White, although most of the stuff that I'm hearing and what I've looked into points towards James White not being the play, although it's Belichick, so who knows? That's the main thing. But why not just pivot to Carlos Hyde? Carlos Hyde kind of in a running back by committee scenario.
What team does he play for, this Carlos Hyde?
Cleveland! Yeah, but he's 4,500. Burkhead's, I think, 4,200. So go with Hyde. Hyde, like Chubb, hasn't done too much in preseason. Like Duke Johnson he's a great pass catching back, and but so is Carlos Hyde. So depending on how the game goes, they could be playing Hyde a whole lot more. 4,500 is too cheap. We've seen him get 10, 12 targets last year. He's the guy that can do a whole lot in the receiving game. He can do a whole lot in the rushing game. We know that Hugh Jackson, he will do weird things and end up playing Crowell and not giving anything to Duke Johnson. So play Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, but it's super, super early in the week. Some people would say it's absolutely epic early. But it is projected to be windy and rainy in that Cleveland game for what it's worth. So
dump-off passes are more efficient?
Yeah, I like the running backs catching passes in the rainy game for sure, a windy game. I have no issue with that at all. So, all right, Christian McCaffrey is like whatever. Everybody loves Christian McCaffrey. I got multiple tweets about Christian McCaffrey. Klein 25. Christian McCaffrey is the week 1 highest scoring running back. I know in season long, we don't talk season long. Season long, he worked his way all the way up to like a first rounder, a late first rounder, Bobby. They said Coach Revere has talked about McCaffrey. It's coach speak for what it's worth, But 25 to 30 touches they want to get McCaffrey. It's probably not getting that many, but if he gets like 22, he's really interesting. And he's going to be, I think, chalky as well. And we're talking about running backs, and I feel like just my first thought is that your flex spot is probably a running back. It just feels – in cash games at least. Tournaments, of course, you can do whatever. Bobby, give me a take as far as Christian McCaffrey. Are you buying the hype?
It's a weird situation because, I thought it was strange when they drafted him, too. I love Christian McCaffrey, actually, as a player. I like him as a player, I should say. I think that it's a weird spot because Cam doesn't throw the ball to the running backs. They changed things up last year, so he did. They actually lined him up, and they had him spread out a little bit, out wide a few times. I think McCaffrey's going to – I mean, he's a good play. The problem is the chalk part of it, but I don't like Dallas tends to play like a slower offense too, so their games are a little bit more drag it out. So I don't love the upside as much as against them as maybe some other people do. And I don't think they're very good, but I don't think that they just play slow. And I don't usually like to take players in Dallas games over the last few years. But I don't know. I'm high on McCaffrey just in terms of what I think he'll actually do in this game. But I don't want to take a chalk guy when I feel like there's a lot of really good options at running back. So I'm sort of I don't know where to go exactly with it. I think as a cash game play, I think he's like one of the best plays on the board, right? I don't play much.
I can see the clock ticking pretty fast in that Dallas game, like you said. The clock stops, of course, on incomplete passes. We think Dallas is probably going to want to run the ball there with Zeke, control the clock for sure. I could see like a 7-minute drive, and nothing's more tilting than to watch like your offensive players just sitting on the bench during 10-minute drives on the other side. And the other part about that, Grant, is that Cam could just keep the ball. He's one of the best goal line players anyway. Why wouldn't he just keep it himself? So that's going to be tilting as well. I like McCaffrey, and he's perfectly fine for cash games, but I absolutely see the pivots in tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you also got to realize. If they're going to try and rush him that much, basically he needs to break off a run. You look what he did last season, and just going through the game log, he never really averaged that much per carry. I mean, yeah, they're going to try and force the ball into his hands from the receiving end of the game, and we've seen what he can do there. So, again, it really raises his floor for cash. But his ceiling for tournaments isn't actually that high. There's a whole bunch of other guys that get into outscoring him by a decent amount. He's a better fade over on FanDuel, obviously, where it's only a half-point PPR. You don't get the 100-yard and 100-yard rushing bonuses. So, yeah, absolutely you can fade him. You play him in cash, but just looking at all the other people around the same price range, what is he priced at, 6,400? So you can go with any one of these wide receivers. Tyreek Hill, kind of the same player. If they try and get the ball into his hands more, he can do more. Shaquan Barkley going up against a Jags defense that is great, but they were less than fantastic versus the run last year at certain points. Other guys like T.Y. Hilton at 400 more who could easily go off for more runs. There are pivots at way less ownership than McCaffrey. So, yeah, you can pivot off of them.
Yeah, I can see Ty for sure getting loose. Like it's gonna nice. I'm sure he's thrilled to have Andrew Luck back, and we always like him at home on the carpet as well too in the dome. Patriots, Bobby, have a 28 team total, 28 and a hook if you want to get all technical. They have no receivers. They added a couple guys, basically some dudes getting cut, but we know Edelman he was hanging out with Dane Cook as well apparently. Chris Hogan seems to be the man. Patterson, Dorsett, I'm not enthused about that. Of course, we know their backs can catch the ball too. With Burkett and with White. Gronk smash is still a thing. They made him 6.9K. Grant, they knew what they were doing, right? That was they're winking when they make that price, aren't they, as far as Gronkowski?
I mean, isn't Gronk normally around this price tag?
Yeah, he always is.
Yeah, but I mean, they could have made him 7K. They could have made him 6K.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Look at you with the jokes.
Man, how were you not all over? How did I beat you to this one? But so how are the Patriots going to score their 28 points there, Bobby?
Chris Hogan.
Chris
Hogan and James White. Chris Hogan is going to have a monster season this year. And I assume everybody's going to catch on to this, but I love
Everyone's already caught on to this. Everyone already believes it.
No. I mean,
you were sailing around the world while people were talking about Chris Hogan.
Yeah, okay, well, sorry. I'm just catching up the last few days, but I just think it's such an easy – obvious play. He's going to be every week, especially until they raise his price. I think at 6'1", he's actually probably my favorite player in that price range anywhere. I know he's going to be popular, but I don't care. I actually just think I just don't see a path of him I don't think he's going to hurt you that much, and I think there's a huge upside for him.
Graham, what's your take on the Pats?
Every time I've ever heard someone say I don't see a path where this player doesn't absolutely crush on the Patriots, you know what generally happens? They generally don't crush.
Chris Hogan was a top 10 receiver last year for a while. This guy, especially with where they're at right now, I don't know, man. I just think that he's going to – I personally don't see it, but go ahead.
Yeah. A lot of people don't see it my way, but it's relying on unless it's a high-volume guy like Julian Edelman, where he's going out of the slot in that Belichick system. Unless it's a high volume pass or target guy like that, there's not really huge consistency in pretty much anything in Belichick's offense year over year since Randy Moss was there in terms of wide receivers. So I'm completely fine. Belichick will just do everyone's going to prepare for Hogan, and he'll just decide, I'm going to force the ball to White, or I'm going to force the ball to this guy. And I get there's not really much depth there at wide receiver, and everyone's immediately going to go to Hogan because of that. But I think that in tournaments, it's completely fine to fade him just because he is 6K. He rarely ever last year outside of the first four. There was an entire 7-week span or 10-week span, from week 5 all the way until week 22 where he didn't put up many points. And again, he was injured for part of that. But still, automatically forcing him into your lineup because he's a great player and he plays for the Patriots is a ridiculous idea.
I don't think he's a great player. This is the guy who's going to get a ton of the workload. That's just what's going to happen. Why would you not play him? I can't see it.
Because it's Belichick.
Yeah. Anyway,
when has a chalk Belichick player hit in the last century?
What are you talking
about? By the
way,
you guys mentioned Hard Knocks. I'm old enough to remember when Chris Hogan was called 24/7 on Hard Knocks. You guys remember that? Because he was always open.
He was always open.
Nah,
I remember hearing that. I don't remember. I didn't watch that one.
But Bobby, do you game stack? Is that something you seek out? Do you let it happen organically? Because right on the other side, you got you got Hopkins, you have Watson, just like, and, high team total as far as, as far as the game. 51 is the total, Pats versus Texans. Is that something that you'll consider in tournaments?
Yeah, I definitely will. I'm not going to force it, but I like you said, I like to let it happen a little more organically. But I definitely have a lot of interest in. I already mentioned White as a pivot off of Burkhead, and I'm going to play a little bit of Burkhead too. I like Hogan on the other side, so I think running it back with Fuller is probably my number one option for Houston. We know the Pats what they do. They take away the other team's best player. I think you'll see Hopkins have a nice game. He's always going to, but I just don't think that I think Fuller is the guy I'm probably focused more on. It's usually the secondary options that beat up on the Pats, and that's just what I always do. So it's going to be a lot of Fuller and a lot of Lamar Miller for me. Lamar Miller is, I think that people are just, the projections are wrong. I think they're off on this. I think he's going to get a lot of work, and I think he's going to be one of the best plays point per dollar on the slate also.
I think people hate playing Lamar Miller. I feel like Lamar Miller is like the future Frank Gore. I feel like he's going to be in the league next 12 years. I don't know why I believe that, but that's what I believe.
Hey, Frank Gore was pretty good. Frank Gore was pretty good for a while. Like, he was pretty good.
Oh no, I'm not. That wasn't a knock on Frank Gore. It's impressive what Frank Gore has done, especially on what did he have 1 or 2 ACLs? I still remember what back when he was a Cane and he hurt himself in the national championship game, whatever it was. Like he's had a great career, but like every year is like this is the year Frank Gore dies, and he's just not dying. He's like a Twinkie, right? Is that one thing that survives a Holocaust that they say? So
that's what they always say. I don't know if it's actually true. I mean, according to that Zombieland, they do have an expiration date.
Well, Zombieland is they wouldn't lie to us. Woody Harrelson would never steal us wrong. Getting back on track, Grant, just a bunch of running backs here. So many that we're talking about. Like Royce Freeman declared the starter versus Seattle. That Seattle defense should not be as good this year. It looks like Seattle's taking a big hit all around. I think they're definitely in the downswing. This is not the Seahawks of your friend like 3 years ago for sure. Alex Collins feels kind of sort of chalky to some degree. He's got a nice matchup. We have James Conner, if that becomes a thing in Pittsburgh, if Le'Veon Bell doesn't play, for sure he's interesting at 4.5K. And then, Grant, with the injury to McKinnon, the matchup isn't particularly great, but you got Alf. You got the alien life form. Alf Morris is 3.6K. Matt Breida's 4.6K. There's so many options at running back. So who amongst that bunch jumps out for you?
Peyton Barber. You didn't mention him.
But he's not sexy, though.
He's not sexy. And again, I already said Carlos Hyde at 4.5. There's also Austin Eckler, who's getting way more involved in the offense last year. And Melvin Gordon, realistically, looking at his numbers and watching the way he plays, he's decent in the open field, but a lot of times he's just absolutely trash. They're going to go away from running on first down, which is drastically lower Melvin Gordon's usage, and it'll probably bring Eckler in the mix a whole lot more. So any one of those guys are way better than anyone you mentioned. Obviously, this is for tournaments and not for cash. What Brady? He's the guy. First of all, you mentioned Alfred Morris. He's going to be like they'll probably split carries 50-50. They're going up against one of the best defenses in the league. Morris doesn't catch a whole lot of passes. Brady didn't catch a whole lot of passes in college, but he kind of changed that a little bit last year. But he had a whole bunch of drops. Maybe he's better, maybe he's worse. Who knows? I think he's going to be the running back in that offense and the preferred guy later on. But like. They don't have a consistent workload. Either does Eckler, and I could see Eckler getting a whole lot more involved and probably getting a touchdown in this matchup. Kansas City really isn't that great of a defense. I mean, there aren't really any guy that's incredibly chalky is most likely not as great of a play as everyone thinks he is this week.
Man, I can't believe all those players you just kind of cast this. I mean, Joe Mixon's another guy. I don't like playing Joe Mixon, but the matchup against Indy, that defense looks dreadful. He's certainly in play for me. 6.1K seems a little bit, I don't want to say steep, but it's full. Let's call that price full. Sure, why not? And Alex Collins, Bobby, is another guy I don't love to play, and also we talk about the correlation plays.
Collins is the guy that you play for cash. You could probably play for tournaments, but if I remember correctly, he's not that heavily involved in the pass game. Buck Allen's still on the team, who's a guy that they could end up throwing in quite a bit on third downs. Dixon might steal a few carries. So everyone thinking that Collins is an absolute stone-cold lock at 5,600 for however many touches may not be true. It doesn't always entirely correlate to fantasy production.
Yeah, but Baltimore's going to be ahead in this game, right? So I understand if you're playing catch-up, he's not exactly the guy you want. He's game flow dependent. But unless you think Peterson's the truth, I'm not going to sit here and crap on the guy for 5 interceptions in one game. That's just too easy. It's low-hanging fruit. He's better than that for sure. And there was some variance and some wonkiness, but
and he was going up against one of the best defenses in the league that is better at turning the ball over than pretty much everyone else. It was the Chargers.
You shouldn't be. I don't think Alex Collins is. I don't like the play myself. I think there is risk. I think he's going to be splitting more carries than people think. I think that if I was taking someone in that range, I would just jump to the other side. As bad as they're going to be, and I mean McCoy is 6K, and 5-6 on Collins. Just take the guy who's much more talented, and he's McCoy is a good player on a really bad team, but he should have a lot of work both through the air and on the ground in this one. So I would just jump over there if I was going to spend in this range.
All right, fair. And I was getting at the correlation, but the Baltimore defense I think is obviously going to be chalky, and defenses more like the super variants. So of course in tournaments you can absolutely pivot off it, but all the math says, the analytics say, playing the stud running back with the defense is certainly something that you can consider in tournaments. So it is a chalky correlation for sure, but that's something I'm definitely considering to some degree. Any more takes, Bobby? Everything else for me off the board as far as running backs? We talked about a lot. Royce Freeman, we just kind of blew past. Do we not care about Royce Freeman?
He's probably splitting carries with Devontae Booker. He's not heavily involved in the pass game, which is something that's an almost necessity in today with DraftKings scoring. So no.
Do you know what we're going to say more and more as the season goes on? Is these guys are splitting carries. The truth is, in this modern day NFL, everybody's sort of splitting carries. Almost everybody.
Lamar Miller's not.
There's like 4 guys who don't. Yeah, I like Lamar Miller. That's what I like Lamar Miller. But really, everybody else is getting. I mean, nobody's playing all downs. Hardly anybody anymore. You got 4 guys who do, and that's it. And I think that you're just going to see that more and more. So there's these running backs that are. There's a lot of guys you can take shots on, but I don't think that any of these guys are like as safe as other people do. That's why I'm going to take shots on guys in GPPs with guys like James White, who like just for the simple fact that he's 4K and it could just as likely be him as Burkhead, or almost as likely to be him as Burkhead in my mind. He'll have no ownership, and there's upside there with his touchdown equity. So I don't know. I'm going to take shots on these guys, but I think we should really realize that as the season progresses, you'll realize that everyone is essentially splitting carries.
Grant, I just realized we've been giving analysis probably for like the last 15 minutes or so. So let's break it. We're just giving way too much. There's no nonsense. Lack of nonsense. Give me a Grant's rant. I feel like you have one as far as an Uber trip recently. Like I feel like that's going down.
I mean, I don't know. I've had a few really weird Uber trips lately, which I don't know why I always get stuck in these, which Bobby can attest to because he's been involved in half of them. This guy, first of all, picks us up in a Porsche. I'm like, okay, well, neato. This is neat. I didn't even have to order an Uber Black or whatever it is. And then we shut the door, and he starts screaming at us about how his door is really nice. Don't slam it so hard. People have nice cars. Don't do this. And then acts nonchalantly like, okay, let's go with our ride after screaming at us. And then we stop for gas, and he goes inside. I think he buys some candy or something. I'm like, okay, at least alert us beforehand and don't scream at us with the door thing. Like, these are both bad things. And then he keeps piling on. He's driving on the most dangerous freeway in America, swerving in and out of traffic, going about 20 over, listening to his music as loud as he possibly can, just absolutely like deafening that I want to whisper, this guy's terrible to my buddy, but he can't hear me, so I just start texting him. We're texting the entire time, and he has to stop texting because he's getting sick because of all the swerving. And then the guy drops us off, like goes across 3 lanes of traffic into a gas station, drops us off, and just the nicest guy in the world. Thanks, guys. It was a real pleasure having you there. Thank you so much. You guys have a nice day. After not saying a word the entirety after we got gas.
What did you give him as a rating?
Oh, this is the first time, or maybe the second time ever, I've given 1 star and actually filed a complaint. Not for something that happened wrong, but just for him being terrible.
Fair enough. Quarterbacks. Let's knock out quarterbacks. Lots of options. We touched on Drew Brees. Monster team total there against Tampa. Some positive regression coming his way. Wasn't chucking so much last year. They ran the ball too much. But I feel like he'll grab a few more touchdowns. We'll talk about the pairing him with Thomas as well as a reasonable option. If you want a cheapie, I don't mind Andy Dalton against that Indy secondary, which would be absolute trash. Tyrod Taylor at 5.4K against Pittsburgh. I like a quarterback with wheels. 5.4K is certainly reasonable. I do think Cleveland. I'm with you, Grant. I'm not going full Cleveland. Never go full Cleveland. But I think the Browns are certainly interesting. What's your take as far as the quarterbacks?
Case Keenum. Case Keenum is one of the best plays on the entire slate. Everyone's still a little bit higher on the Seattle defense than they should be, but it's terrible. Case Keenum is essentially going into a very similar situation they had over in Minneapolis, where he has 2 stud wide receivers to absolutely rely on, plus whatever his name, Sutton, is, as their 3rd wide receiver. They'll have Booker in, or not Booker, the other guy. Freeman, nope, it was Booker. In on 3rd downs, and he can catch the ball pretty well. Case Keenum is absolutely going to destroy the Seahawks defense, and the over-under on this game is just silly at 40 when it should be way higher than that because these are not 2 stout defensive teams anymore.
I couldn't agree with you more. I literally feel like I could have said the exact same things you just said. And I mean, I really feel that way about Keenum. I think the exact same thing is true. I don't know why the score total is so low. It makes no sense to me. And I think Keenum is like one of the best plays on the board, and nobody's going to play him.
I want to argue with you. Who do you think is not a good play?
Wait, what?
I want to argue with you about something. Who do you think's not a good play?
I'm just surprised you didn't bring up Ryan Fitzpatrick ahead of Keenum. I thought
Ryan Fitzpatrick, best beard in the league, going to go for 100 fantasy points. No, I can't even believe
He's
that.
He's smart, too. He went to Harvard. Not sure if you heard that before.
Oh, yeah, because everyone who's ever been to Harvard never talks about it.
I'm in San Francisco right now, and that definitely isn't true. These guys literally are so smug, walking around with their Harvard and sweatshirts and stuff. I cannot stand these people. Like, literally, this is a cool city, except for the people.
Bobby?
That's generally the consensus of a good city. Like, oh, this city's really cool. The people are fantastic. No one ever says everything about this is fantastic, but I can't stand a single person I've talked to.
Yeah, they're just not good people. a lot of
just trying to.
I was walking around. Anyway, sorry.
Grant said that Case Keenum is going to absolutely destroy. Nobody said Case Keenum's going to destroy anybody since like his days like as a Houston Cougar. And then Bobby says like 100%.
Oh, and back in Houston when he set every single FBS record in quarterback history.
There's no wondering where. Or Timmy Chang or something.
Won some people, including myself, some money last year. I don't think they
won me a lot of money. I used him so much.
I will say I love Manny Sanders.
Manny Sanders talk about him as much as Fitzpatrick. But he talked
Stop talking at the same time.
I'm going to stop talking. Somebody else, go.
Go, Grant.
Oh, I don't know what we're talking about anymore.
Well, now we have nothing to say. All right, Dean, give us a topic.
We've already determined that Case Keenum's the greatest quarterback that ever lived, apparently. I did want to say that Manny Sanders at 5K just seems too cheap, and it's like a really strong cash game play. Like Grant was saying, the Seattle defense, they should take a big step back. And by the way, as far as the total, what I'm saying on the RG page here is that 42.5 is the total for that game. So I guess it's jumped up a little bit from what you're looking at. 22.75 as far as the projected total points for Denver. Let's jump to receivers. Sure, why not? Grant, Keelan Cole at 3.8K. We kind of touched that earlier. Manny Sanders at 5K. Those are 2 of my favorite plays as far as dollar for dollar. We talked about Hogan's a great dollar for dollar play. Thomas, for the matchup there against Tampa, like it just feels like 150 and 2 touchdowns are absolutely in play. Who are you prioritizing as far as receivers?
The obvious guys are Emmanuel Sanders and Keelan Cole. Let's see some other guys. One guy, I'm trying to figure out if he's going to be chalky, but it's Danny Amendola who's going to get the Jarvis Landry trade. Yeah, he's not going to be chalky?
No. I think people will play stills before they play Amendola. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but won't they play stills before they play Amendola?
I don't know why they would. I mean, he's going to get Amendola's good. He's going to be Jarvis Landry. People will say, oh, what about Jarvis, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Tannehill's back in. He'll be checking down a whole lot. Amendola's at 4,200, which is way too – by the way, Jarvis Landry's at 5,500. He's going to be way too cheap. Josh Gordon isn't coming into the lineup. He's going to be fantastic. If you're going to use Emmanuel Sanders, go up to Jarvis Landry or go up to Demaryius Thomas. Everyone's talking about the huge connection that Case Keenum has with Sanders, and yes, to an extent has something to do with the fact that he had good route runners over in Minnesota, and that's the type of guy he likes to throw to. But Demaryius Thomas is also a tall, incredibly athletic guy that Case Keenum could throw it into a tight area there, and Demaryius Thomas can come down with it. They are fantastic plays. Jarvis Landry is pretty much guaranteed 10 targets in this game. Even in bad weather, he's going to be checking down to smaller passes with Landry. I don't know why I'm getting angry or fired up about this.
Because you're talking about the Browns, and that's what
I do love them. They are so good. But Landry, I mean, how many times did he have 8, 9, 10 catches? Constantly. That plus 50, 60 yards. And first of all, Tyrod's a better quarterback than Kaiser ever was. They still have to pass to someone. He's going to end up with a baseline of like 14 points and a potential, if he just gets a touchdown, which maybe he can get two. He's in a completely different system. Be able to rely on him more. I get that they have Josh Gordon back in the lineup, but he's hampered by hamstring injury. He's not even going to start probably. So Jarvis Landry at 5,500 just silly to me.
Bobby, feel free to elaborate any of those dudes and open up the floor for some new wide receivers that you want to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, my favorite receiver on the board I don't think this is like a shocker, but I think he'll be the top scoring receiver this week is Keenan Allen.
The
guy who literally is criminally underowned, even when he's owned. Like if he should be 25%, he's 5%. Like he's just never owned. Grant knows this. We pick this guy all the time, and I don't know why. He's legitimately a top 5 receiver in the NFL, and this week I think he's the number 1 play. Manuel Sanders, aside from any personal connection that I have to him, I think is a really solid play along with Demaryius Thomas as well.
Wait a second. You have a personal – are you Eskimo brothers? I feel like there's a follow-up question. Where, Grant?
I know the answer.
Can I reserve the right to refuse that answer to that question?
Yeah, you don't think – if you don't want to answer, you don't think answer.
No. Well, I'll just say you're on the right track.
You don't want to.
You're on the right track.
Yeah, you might be on the complete right track.
You are. You nailed it. That was anyways. But I do think he's a solid play, and I probably shouldn't have mentioned that on the air. But but I love both Denver receivers. I really, like I said, I love Keenan Allen, and I'm trying to pay down at running back, so I'm going to try and spend up take all these top guys. I want some Brown exposure. I want some Thomas exposure. I want some Hopkins. No, not Hopkins. Sorry, I want some Hilton Ty exposure.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like where I'm trying to spend up here, and I do think that while people will have ownership in all those guys, sure, I think just the cheap running backs and then stacking it up with some of these guys is the way that I'm leaning so far.
Grant, you said you want to do some weird things. It's weird to say this is a weird thing, but it's a weird thing, right? Playing Beckham versus the Jaguars, that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't think I want to do that because there's too many other options around the same range. I trust this Jacksonville team way too much, and I don't trust Eli Manning enough. I'll probably end up playing him next week, but there is some merit to it. He's way cheaper than he has been in a long time. What injury did he break his foot last year? Was that it?
You talking about Beckham?
Yeah. I don't remember.
I think, if I'm getting the visual back, I'm pretty sure it was his leg. It's either his foot or his leg. I don't know what exactly. Somewhere it was a lower body injury. How about that?
Yeah, in any case, he could end up just tearing things apart. He was playing the Chargers, which is a kind of similar defense. As ridiculous as that is to say, when he actually broke it and he was out, I think 3/4 of the way in, he still had 21 points. So, yes, he can't. I'll probably have some exposure to him, but I think it's just because I love A.J. Green right above him. And people aren't going to be on Dalton. Dalton's going to be fantastic in this game. He's going to be one of the better quarterbaks. We didn't even talk about that because of my love for Case Keenum.
Okay.
I mentioned him in passing, but, I think Dalton certainly –
Oh, wait, we got a disagreement, Bobby? Let's go. Talk to me about Dalton.
Well, I'm going to talk more about A.J. Green. I just think you're going to see a terrible year out of him. I think he's going to fall off the top 10 receivers in the NFL. And right now he's probably considered 4th or 5th. I think he's going to drop way out.
What? Can you give me a reason why?
Their line is terrible. Dalton's terrible. He'll get targets because they're going to be playing from behind a lot. Not in this game necessarily, but I just think that he to me, it looked like he lost a little bit of something last year. And I think he's a little bit of a head case. I think he's going to drop completely off the face of the earth. Or not the face of the earth, off the top 10 receivers in the NFL. That's my prediction.
When you're getting a 50% target share pretty much in the entire offense, and they're probably going to be throwing it to him even more this year, it's kind of he's similar to a Hopkins scenario last year, where they're just going to be forcing the ball into him. And
does he have one of the lowest catch rates per target? I think he's in the top 5, I think.
Well, that's because they have a terrible line and they can't get good throws to him, but they're never going to stop throwing to him because it's the best option.
So he can have 10 targets and 2 receptions again.
Or he can have 20 targets and 10 receptions and 100 yards and a touchdown and score 30 points like he did against Green Bay, or like he did against Buffalo, or like he did multiple other times last year.
Okay, yeah. Actually, if there was a week to play him, I think this would be a good option. But
just turning course. Turning course here.
Dropping off the face of the earth this year. There's too many other good receivers that are going to just leap past him. He's not as good a receiver as ever. He's never been as good as everyone made him out to be. He's always been good. But he gets so much of that workload, it skews things.
He's been on a terrible team the entire time.
No,
it's like saying Odell Beckham's not good.
That team was good for a while. You forget that. That was a few years ago. They were good.
It wasn't so much their offense; it was their defense, and they just had. It was a lot their running game. Like they were well rounded. But
so what is your
Green,
argument here? I don't understand what you think. AJ, you think you don't agree that he's going to fall off. So you think that he's going to get the targets where that won't happen, but then you're also arguing that he is legitimately one of the best 10 receivers in the NFL.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I think that's what everyone believes. I think by the end of the year we'll be laughing at that.
Okay, well, we'll see. I doubt that's going to happen.
All right.
Bobby, I got bad news for you. The official scorecards are in, and all 3 judges have it scored. Grant 10, Bobby, you lost that round. Bobby 9. So
yeah, I probably did lose that round. That's fine. That's fine with me. I still believe that. Well, it doesn't matter what the judges score it at. We're gonna get AJ Green. We're gonna get the actual results. Like we don't.
I feel like we need to make up this week 1. We need to have a season-long bet.
Absolutely.
This is daily fantasy sports. All we care about is this week, this day, and this day. AJ Green versus putrid Indianapolis.
Yeah, probably the best option to play him. I'm probably the best time to play him. I'm still not going to do it, but I think this would be the week I would.
All right. Let's find a correlating wide receiver that you think is going to be better, fantasy-wise.
This year or for this
year?
Adam Thielen.
Okay, done. I will take Adam Thielen.
Oh, I want that action too.
I don't know, actually. I think I do like Adam Thielen. The problem is they're so good in Minnesota, they may not get the workload. Like they're going to be playing from ahead a lot. I don't know. That's a tough one. Well, Keenan Allen's going to be way ahead of him this year.
Yeah, Keenan Allen's the best wide receiver in the league, hands down.
Well, you say, yeah, Dean, but that's not like an obvious thing to a lot of people.
You know what? How about this? You give me 15 points, and I'll give you Julio Jones, and we'll come up with the punishment.
Oh, done deal. Julio Jones.
Yeah, that was ballsy, but I feel like
Julio Jones.
You're a terrible negotiator, Grant. You're no.
I have Giolito outscoring
10-9. The judges are in.
I bet that Giolito would outscore Verlander today against Cardi just because I like to do this.
Side note: why didn't more people start Musgrove? I felt like that was the only obvious thing to do.
Bobby,
why are we talking baseball?
This is
football. No one hear this on Thursday. No idea what we're talking about.
Great, you brought it up.
Mine was about betting, not about baseball. You went complete baseball. I was about betting.
So Grant, tell the people we're trying to get some ideas as far as wagers, as far as punishments. Tell the people to tweet us. Our Twitters will be we'll throw it out there as far as on the old Twitter machine. I'm sure they follow you anyway for sure. Grant, tell the people your Twitter. Bobby, tell the people your Twitter in a second. We want to. I guess we want to be punished. Is that what's going on here, Grant?
I am a masochist, so yes. Is that the right word? Is that what they're called?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I watched Billions, and I believe that's the correct word. Yes. So, you guys watch Billions? It's a really solid show.
I watched the first episode because I love Paul Giovanni, but I stopped.
It's one of those shows that's good, but I can't.
Paul Giovanni?
Dude, I can't pronounce anyone's name.
Wait, how can you mispronounce his name? His dad.
How do you love Paul Giovanni?
Commissioner of baseball too.
Bart. He's the guy that banished Pete Rose. Nice
I remember that card that they had, like a card that was worth a lot of money with like a signature thing. And when I used to collect baseball cards when I was a kid, that was what stuck out.
Yeah, we should have our own little side. We love our own little side, little baseball card podcast. I was kind of sort of in business to something.
Wait, do you want to get in on this too, Dean? Do you want to pick? We'll give you Michael Thomas plus 10.
Who am I taking? Michael Thomas versus anybody.
Smoke him this year.
Again, who am I taking him against?
So many.
All right, so I'm putting the AJ. I'll take AJ Green. You get Michael Thomas minus 10, and Bobby gets Julio Jones minus 15. Or unless you want to force him to go minus 15.
Yeah, I'll take.
I'll take the 10. I'm fine with 10. I don't need any more.
3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
What are you counting?
I think I'm counting how many receivers are going to pass him this year. It's going to be 7 or 8, not 10.
No, I'm talking about minus 10 points. So at the end of the season, I get AJ Green.
No, I know what you mean. I said I was just correcting myself because earlier I said that there would be 10 receivers that pass him. I think there's going to be.
Are there injuries? It's a wash or just whatever, straight up?
No, straight up. So I'm kind of banking on injuries now, I guess.
I don't know. I think Julio is like.
That's your one out.
I wish Julio was not in the Thursday game, even though it's a bad matchup. Like I think Julio is going to have a monster season.
Julio Jones hasn't finished the game.
So has everyone every single season he's ever been in the league.
And by the way, he's been amazing every single season except for like last year where he still was just really great instead of being amazing.
Yeah,
really good. When people are complaining about guys who catch 7 balls for 100+ yards as having a down game, that means you're great. That means you're amazing. That means you're top he's probably the second best receiver in the NFL. He's the first or second.
No, Keenan Allen's the first. So
Keenan Allen's the third.
Keenan Allen's the best receiver in the NFL.
No. Keenan Allen's the third best receiver.
He's really good, but he's on the Family Feud board. I'll say that.
He's probably the best route runner of anybody.
Who?
Keenan Allen, yeah.
Say it.
He ran a 4.740 coming out of college, and he's like, we're talking about him as legitimately being. That's an amazing thing to do in this day and age with all these athletes. I think he's amazing, Keenan Allen. I give you that one.
Grant, let's complete this thought. As far as we're trying to crowdsource. We want the people to give us legitimate punishments that we can actually have as far as our weekly punishments. We're going to give our bold takes in just a second.
We'll have weekly punishments, but on week one of the playoffs, we can dole out the big punishment for this bet that I don't know why we decided on this one, but I
don't know what happened there. I don't even know what I agreed to be honest. I hope
you got Michael Thomas outscoring. We have Michael Thomas minus 10 points. There's Julio Jones minus 15 points and AJ Green plus 0, so even. So for fantasy points at the end of the season. No, we got to think of a good punishment.
Yeah, well, you know what? If somebody gives us a good punishment on our Twitter machines, we'll and we actually use it. If we actually use your punishment, we'll hook you up with a RotoGrinders t-shirt. How about that? At Bobby Fi, at G Neeper, and I'm at DFS_almanac because I just want to be as difficult as possible. That stupid underscore.
And if you guys want, I will have someone forge my signature onto it.
Well, they probably don't want that. I'm just gonna speak on their behalf, and also it's a process with shipping. They got to ship it to you, and then you ship it to them, and it's all.
No, I said I'd have someone forge it, so it won't actually be mine, but it'll look like mine. I can teach someone. I know some choreographers.
I know a guy. I'm in Nashville, so I probably could. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm not offering my services necessarily, and so catch the people up, Bobby. As far as the Twitter deal, as far as things that we tweet out. At least what you guys did in the show last year. I'm new. I know how it goes down because I listen to the show. But in case people are new, they're not sure what's going down. What do we do as far as weekly punishments? So
the deal we've always done is we have to tweet out something that the other ones pick for us. But this year, I think we should just have it be embarrassing about us, and it's got to be about you too.
Wait, what?
No matter what, everybody has to.
I don't want
to.
You're just saying this because I've never embarrassed.
Grant, you don't get embarrassed.
That's a terrible idea.
It's not worth it for you. Maybe we should change this one up without JM here because Grant doesn't get embarrassed.
And I get embarrassed way too easily, so that this doesn't work for me.
No, I do. I think, Dean, you're number 2 in the power rankings in this conversation.
There are power rankings, apparently.
Yeah, I'm definitely the worst.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I do get embarrassed and I just don't show it. That's good game theory, guys.
That is good game theory. You're a terrible negotiator, but you're good at game theory. There you go. You're scoring at home. But in Grant, you're the ones that kind of comes up with these tweets, and I guess you're the most creative when it comes to it. But yeah, and well, I guess do we have has something come up organically, Grant? Did you have a bold take based upon the conversation that we've had throughout the? We're coming up on an hour or so.
I mean, me and Bobby are both on Case Keenum as a quarterback. What about? I don't know what me and Bobby disagreed on.
Yes, we did. We disagreed. We just disagreed on this whole thing. What are you talking about?
As a season, I mean, we can take high-priced wide receivers, but I'm not giving you Keenan Allen.
I'll take Dalton versus Keenum.
Okay, that's interesting.
Well, then we need a third one on here.
Yeah, we do because we are on the same page there. So we need to find something we disagree on.
You guys can both take Keenum for all
No, by the way, you know what's funny is Adam Thielen actually had more fantasy points last year than AJ Green did.
But he doesn't have Case Keenum anymore.
Yeah, right. Okay. We'll see.
F it. I'll take Tyrod. You can take Keenum.
All right. I think we should do this. I think we should, we'll pick one of these categories or whatever. I like Tyrod too. That's the problem. He's the other guy I would be using.
Well, you can have Tyrod. I'll take Case Keenum.
But I don't want to we should do one that we actually disagree on, not one we're forcing him to disagree on.
Well, Dean disagrees with us.
I don't disagree. I just prefer Dalton, which is a weird sentence, but it's no weirder than Case Keenum's going to annihilate anybody.
I don't know. Who's a low-priced wide receiver you guys didn't like?
Well, I mean, Cole is obviously the chalk play, right?
All right, Bobby, did you have one that you really liked?
I really like – why don't we just do best point per dollar or bold call and we'll decide who loses it?
Well, Bobby, if you hate AJ Green so much, how come? Why would you not like Ross? Like this seems like he's going to get beyond the defense.
Because he's saying Dalton's terrible.
Oh, look, dude. I don't hate Green so much this week. It's in general this season that I'm talking about.
Fair enough.
And I would prefer the other guys in his price range this week. That's what
guys. FYI, all this is figuring out how we're going to do this the rest of the season. So sorry for the family bickering.
Let's just take a point per dollar
We
player.
have probably done this off air. This is the dress rehearsal, right? Week 1's not till next week, right? This is like week 3 of the preseason. Is that what's going down? Or no, this is real. This is actually going out to the people.
This is real.
This is actually going out to the people. I'm sure they want to know what goes on behind the scenes or on
Let's
the
just do
scenes.
highest point per dollar scorer and just pick any player at any position. Or all running backs, whatever you want, anything. I'm okay with any of this.
Let's go tight end since we haven't talked about any.
Oh, beautiful. I like that idea.
Any tight end, 3.5K and under. How about that?
Oh, I have a guy.
Yeah. I like it's a weird I don't mind Jordan Reed just because I know he's healthy and he's 4K. At least this far. Didn't he have like bones removed from his feet? That's never a good sign. Where he had bones he wasn't aware of, I think.
Bones aren't relevant to your life. I mean, bones have zero effect on the way you live your life.
Can we make it 3,600 and lower?
Okay, so you can have Jack Doyle. Okay, you could take Jack Doyle.
I will be playing Jordan Reed and Jack Doyle everywhere.
All right, Dean, you're up.
I mean, I don't want to. I mean, am I going to say ASJ? Are we going to make it? Is ASJ finally going to happen? Like, we keep trying to force this guy, but the Giants are really bad historically against tight ends. 3.2K. I mean, you're not giving me much of a choice here, unfortunately.
Okay, we can go hard. Do you want to take Jordan Reed?
There's an interesting guy in there.
I'll tell you somebody who I really like, for the season at tight end is Trey Burton, but he's not. He's just a little bit too expensive, and he's on the slate. He's not on the main slate.
That was my number one. That would have been my number one guy.
That's everyone's number one. Everyone's high on Trey Burton. Everyone.
I'm always going to give you the chalk answer. Have you met me before?
You know who's the best tight end in football? Anybody who plays the Browns. That's the truth. The problem is that Steelers don't utilize their tight end quite enough.
Don't give away that secret. Yeah, I know.
I knew you were going to say that, Grant.
Of course, I said it every single week last season. I was the guy you wanted.
Worse, they're playing more bait. It's really going to be bad this year.
Oh, gosh.
Njoku's not a bad play, actually. I know the Browns tight end himself. I think he takes a step forward this year. I don't mind him, but was he 3.4K? That's not so bad.
Yeah, Njoku's a great. I think that's your other guy. The problem is Pittsburgh is really, really good at limiting the position, and they have been for a while.
Does anybody have a strong stand as far as tight end? I don't know how we got forced.
I mean, I want ASJ. If Vance McDonald's plays, he'd be my guy, but I don't think he's going to play, and he's not going to be healthy if he does.
You don't want the outlaw, Jesse James?
I don't think that's a bad play.
It's not. I'll take Jesse James. I don't care about losing the first week.
Well, you can have either one. Like if McDonald, you can have the contingency. We can build the contingency. Sure, why not? If McDonald goes, he's yours. But if not, you default to James. Does that make sense?
All right. Yeah, that's fine with me. Bobby,
who's your tight end?
Well, the guys I'm playing, I'm going to be playing Davis. I'm sorry, I played Reed and Doyle, but Doyle's my guy, I guess I'm saying. Because I don't feel as comfortable quite with their situation, but I love Doyle. And I really I think that that Kyle Rudolph is going to have a huge week also, even though he's more expensive, but that's just a side note I wanted to throw out there.
I just don't know how it's going to break there in Indy with Doyle and they brought in Ebron, who was like.
It's going to be Doyle.
But they don't really have a third or a second receiving option.
Eric Ebron is a pass-catching tight end who can't catch passes. Like, what is he going to do?
Well, yeah. Well, he's so talented, though.
That's why he was in the
North Carolina.
Talented guy, but literally cannot catch a ball to save his life.
It is kind of disappointing to watch him play football, but I mean, he's got to be more talented. I don't know whatever his spark score. He's got to have a better spark score than Doyle. But whatever.
No, Doyle's good, man. Doyle's a very, very underrated tight end, and he was clicking with Luck before Luck went down a while back. I think this is the spot. I'm going to go up. I like Doyle a lot.
All right, so Dean, who are you taking?
Do I get Reed or do I have to default down to
if you're taking Reed, I want ASJ.
Oh, okay. I guess I'll take ASJ. Then. Well, gosh, the famous last words. I guess I'm taking ASJ versus the Giants at 3.2K. I'm not enthused about it.
Well, he has the best quarterback in the league throwing to him.
I don't believe he does. You're talking about Bortles Combat?
Yeah, Bortles Combat. I haven't heard that nickname.
Yeah, that's they used to call him. They called him that. I went to UCF, so I got to represent. That's they called him back at UCF.
It is weird about Bortles that, like, I don't think he's necessarily the worst quarterback in the NFL, but I can't think of anyone worse than him.
What was more impressive, by the way, the UCF humble brag or the Harvard humble brag? Which one is more impressive?
I don't know why anyone would brag about UCF.
I mean, they're only the national champs. Come on.
No, that's right. They could have won the title last year. They probably should have. At least get a share of it like they did back in the 90s.
There you go. We swayed one person. That's good enough for me.
I mean, you're still living in Florida. Sorry, Dan Bach.
Well, no. No, I'm not in. No, I'm not in Florida anymore.
I wasn't talking to you. I was just talking about people that live in Florida.
Can I ask you that question? How did you live in Florida? Florida is the weirdest place. It's the weirdest place.
It's much weirder on the internet. Like a lot of weird.
Everything's weirder on the internet, Dean.
Dean, I used to have to spend a week every month in just outside of Tampa, and I couldn't. I thought it was literally like I was in the worst part of the South. Like, there's a lot of crazy things that happen in this country, and usually it's from people that are from Florida and Arizona.
You know, it's
Florida is the Australia of the U.S.
No, Australia is awesome.
Yeah, Miami's pretty neat, but a lot of parts of Australia, not all of Australia is the same.
We take
Sorry, Dean, I didn't give you a chance to answer.
So Grant, you know, it's interesting. You were taking shots. You're saying how Chick-fil-A is a bunch of liars. I'm going to tell you who's a bunch of liars because, Bobby, you mentioned South and you mentioned Florida and you mentioned Tampa. The University of South Florida, if you ever look at a map, resides in Tampa. South Florida resides in Tampa. They are frauds.
Everything in Florida is so weird. It's such a weird place.
It's not in South Florida is the point. Pull up the old map. It's not even close. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absurd.
Hey, guys, this is a good time to bring up week 1. Archie's having a nice little hangout thing in Florida with Dan Bach and Stevie TPFL, and I think Will. I'm saying that because they're all the people residing in Florida who are going to hear this and shake their fists at us in anger.
Yeah, I was. I lobbied for it to go down in Nashville, but I didn't have the votes. Unfortunately, I was outnumbered. And if I lived in I'm pretty sure Will lives in Charleston. That's not. I don't know how far that is away. I think they're in North Florida, kind of in the Jacksonville area. Is that
Charleston's cool? Good for Will. That's a cool place.
Yeah, well, that's where I used to live too. But we can be talking about these things off there. That people don't really care about that. No.
If you've actually stayed tuned for this long, I'm impressed.
Should we do Super Bowl picks, guys?
San Diego Superchargers.
In the comments section, just so we know you listened all the way through. We should have some kind of code word, Grant. Well, what should they put? Like their favorite Simpsons character or something in the comment section.
No, I'm going to think of something. What do you need the code word for?
Well, I mean, just to let us know, give us a way that they know that they listened all the way through. And I'm not promising T-shirts.
The code word is Florida.
Bushiest beaver. Put bushiest beaver down at the very beginning, and then ... and we'll know you listened through.
Grant, there's children listening. Maybe.
Wait, I wasn't referring. No, I was referring to
follow-up question. I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't know what
follow-up questions.
That wasn't dirty.
Oh,
I believe it was a contest in the state fair.
Was it not dirty?
I mean, you made it dirty.
No.
What are we playing?
Okay, I'm gonna Google this. I'm gonna Google this right now and see how it turns out.
Oh my God!
Wrap-up song.
Do I need to go
in incognito mode first?
Bobby, what do you think the people should put in the comment section for making a? And how about this is a work in progress. I am new to this team. It
was from The Office. Bushiest. It was a joke in The Office during the Dundies. He gave busiest beaver to Phyllis, and it was bushiest beaver. It accidentally said. That's what it's from. I knew it was part of one contest, and it wasn't dirty.
Can you tell us your favorite character from The Office? How about that? You can do that as well. Either one works.
Yeah, that's a great one. All right, we got it sold, guys.
I think you got to go chalk though on the best character from The Office. It's kind of sucks, but you do.
There is no chalk, especially
there's two chalk characters from The Office that are so far better than everyone else in the show.
Then name it.
Michael is my favorite character.
Michael's a terrible person.
No, as a character. What are you talking about?
I know, but he's a terrible person. It's just so awkward. It's hard to watch sometimes.
It's amazing.
Everyone says he loves him, but no, I'm not a Michael guy.
That's the whole show is based around him, which is the David Brent character that Ricky Gervais created before on The British Office. Both of those characters are like the best characters in television history.
What just happened in the last 10 minutes of the show?
The best character is Dwight.
Dwight would be the other one. He's the other Chuck.
The best character is Jim then.
No, who's the best non-main character?
Creed.
It's Creed or it's Kevin. It's very clearly Creed or Kevin.
Oh, it's got to be Creed.
I think Stanley's in the conversation. I think he's in the conversation.
No, get out.
No, Stanley's not that good.
No, get Stanley out.
Solid.
No.
Get Stanley out of here.
I missed Michael. I thought Robert California was pretty funny.
Oh, that's
Robert California was the best character for the short period of time.
No, stop it! You guys are being ridiculous. You're just trying to insult me because
No, that was
James Spader is an incredible actor and great in everything.
That's a different conversation. That is a different conversation.
All he did was play the character he played in Boston Legal and put it into The Office, and that's why he was absolutely incredible.
Nobody watched Boston Legal.
That's because everyone was dumb back in the day when it was on TV, and now it's not on Netflix or anything. It goes on Netflix, it becomes one of the most popular TV shows, and becomes a cult classic.
Wow.
Arrested Development, they bring it back. Oh, gosh.
So,
okay, one football note that we should just mention before the show's over.
Guys, are you still listening? Are we recording still?
We are. Yes.
Just because we didn't mention his name, and if he scores the most fantasy points, and he's a guy that I hate, but I think he's going to have a huge week, is Melvin Gordon.
Melvin Gordon isn't even going to get half the carries. It's going to Eckler.
I don't think so.
Austin Eckler outscores Melvin Gordon this week, guys.
Grant, you are
okay. Can I get the X on that?
You don't understand what they're doing. It's so obvious. He's not the guy who can handle all the carries later in the season, especially. He'd been beaten up for a while, so they started giving Eckler more of a workload. That trend is not going to continue. Just not going to happen.
Disagree. I have people in the Chargers organization, and by that I mean a guy that accidentally snuck on the field and got arrested.
What?
Oh my God.
On that amazing note, George Costanza taught us that you're supposed to leave on a high note, right? I don't know if that was a high note, but sure, let's pretend like it was.
We have to do Super Bowl picks, guys. It's the first one of the year.
It's the Chargers. The Chargers win the Super Bowl.
Okay, who are they beating? Which is ridiculous.
I don't care. It's irrelevant. Chargers win. Who's in the other league? I don't know who's in the other league. We'll go with Minnesota.
I like Minnesota too. I think it's gonna be Minnesota and who did I have winning it all? Let me just take a look. Wait,
no one's even gonna hear our picks because they stopped listening.
Well, I don't care. I want to say I want to say it so we can have on I don't know, some sort of thing about it.
On record.
On the record.
I couldn't think of the word I was looking for because I was trying to find this. Wait, I did have a different team than any of these teams. Okay, anyway. So, Dean, pick two teams. Who's your teams?
The Jaguars are going to win the Super Bowl.
No.
There you go.
Yeah, they were going to be my next pick because they have the best quarterback, and quarterbacks win Super Bowls.
Bortles Combat, half-sag UCF. I did want to say, and please feel free, and they're going to butcher, they're going to attack us this last 15 minutes or so. But, I'm happy to hear any constructive criticism. What do you guys want to hear in the show? And again, bear in mind, this is a first look, first thing you do in the week. You're not listening to this podcast in theory on a Saturday or Sunday morning. There's a lot of other content out there from RG. But, let us know what you want to hear. And please tell us how we should, shame each other with bets and things of that sort. We will happily play along if we like it. Grant, what do you have on the road with the people?
What? What's on the road?
Give me something for the road. Yeah, give me something for the road.
I don't know.
We're going to stay by.
I don't. Guys, if you've been wearing the same pair of shorts for 2 weeks and it's really hot, they probably smell real bad. Even if you can't smell it, they definitely smell bad.
You don't know your own smell. For Bobby, for Grant, I'm Dean. Thanks for listening to the absolutely epic early week podcast. Holler.
Steelers win Super Bowl.
See you, kids.